In December 1984, an anonymous package arrived containing photos of 8 classified pages. The documents described a secret committee authorized by President Truman in 1947 to study recovered alien spacecraft and bodies. The briefing was prepared for President-elect Eisenhower and detailed 2 crashed spaceships, 4 dead humanoid beings, and a cover-up that's lasted 75 years. The FBI called them fake. The problem is, the documents contain verifiable classified information that nobody outside intelligence circles should have known in 1984. And congressional whistleblowers today are describing the exact same secret committee structure managing recovered non-human technology. In December 1984, Jamie Shandera checked his mail in North Hollywood and found a brown paper package with an Albuquerque postmark and no return address. Inside was a roll of undeveloped 35mm film. No note, just the film. When he developed it, he found 8 pages of what appeared to be a highly classified government briefing document dated November 18, 1952. The document was allegedly prepared for President-elect Dwight Eisenhower by Rear Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, and it detailed something that would change how we understand government secrecy forever. According to the briefing, the U.S. government had received 2 crashed spaceships. In the first crash, in early July 1947 near Roswell, authorities recovered the bodies of 4 small humanoid beings. President Harry Truman had authorized the creation of a super-secret group called Majestic 12 to study the remains and manage the cover-up. The documents named 12 specific individuals who comprised the committee. And these were not random names. They were the architects of the modern American intelligence state. The alleged members of MJ-12 were the most powerful figures in post-war American military, intelligence, and scientific leadership. We're talking about the people who literally built the CIA, the Department of Defense, and the classified research infrastructure. Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter was the first director of Central Intelligence, serving from 1947 to 1950. James Forrestal was the first Secretary of Defense. Van Bush was the top science advisor who drove the Manhattan Project and established the modern military scientific complex. General Nathan Twining and General Hoyt Vandenberg were high-ranking Air Force leaders who were directly involved in early UFO investigations like Project Sign. Sidney Sewers was briefly the first director of Central Intelligence in 1946 before becoming the first executive secretary of the National Security Council. Gordon Gray was assistant secretary of the Army and later ran the CIA's Psychological Strategy Board. He was also involved in classified anti-gravity research programs. These were more than important people in the government. They were the exact people you would choose if you were forming a committee to handle the most significant discovery in human history. They had the clearances. They had the institutional authority. They were all appointed around 1947 when the National Security Act reorganized the entire government and created the modern intelligence apparatus. And they all had documented connections to New Mexico during the exact time period when the Roswell incident occurred. When researchers first saw the MJ-12 documents, one name stood out as completely wrong. Dr. Donald Menzel was a Harvard astronomer who had spent decades publicly debunking UFO sightings. He wrote 3 books explaining away flying saucers as atmospheric phenomenon, Venus, weather balloons, and optical illusions. He was the establishment's go-to guy for dismissing UFO reports. So why would a secret government committee investigating crashed alien spacecraft include the country's most prominent UFO skeptic? It made no sense. Some said this fact proved that the documents were a poorly researched forgery. Then, Stanton Friedman started digging. Friedman was a nuclear physicist who dedicated years to investigating the MJ-12 documents. In 1986, he got special permission to access Menzel's personal papers at the Harvard University archives. What he found was stunning. Menzel had a secret life nobody knew about. He had a 30-year continuous association with the National Security Agency and its Navy predecessor. That was longer than anyone else in the country. He held a top-secret ultra clearance with the CIA. he did classified cryptology and intelligence work for 30 different defense contractors. He made numerous government-paid trips to New Mexico in 1947 and 1948, right after the Roswell crash. The famous UFO debunker was actually one of the most connected intelligence assets in the American security establishment. And this information wasn't publicly available in 1984 when the documents first appeared. Friedman had to get special permission from 3 different people just to access Menzel's archived papers. So whoever created the MJ-12 documents knew about Menzel's classified work before it became public knowledge. They knew details that were buried in restricted archives. They included information that would later be independently verified through official channels. That's not how hoaxes work. Hoaxes get details wrong. They make obvious mistakes. They don't include obscure classified information that gets proven true years later. The Eisenhower briefing document does more than name the committee members. It provides detailed information about what they were investigating. On July 7, 1947, a secret operation was conducted to recover wreckage and bodies from a crash site northwest of Roswell. 4 small human-like beings had been ejected from a craft before it exploded. All were dead. Civilian and military witnesses were debriefed. A cover story about a weather balloon was given to the press to manage the near hysteria surrounding the initial reports. The craft itself was described as disc-shaped. The technology was beyond anything in the U.S. arsenal. Analysis suggested it was designed for long-distance travel, possibly interplanetary. A second crash occurred near the Texas-Mexico border in December 1950. The documents state that the Majestic 12 was responsible directly and only to the President of the United States. It operated outside normal military and intelligence oversight. Its mission was twofold: exploit the recovered technology and maintain absolute secrecy about the existence of non-human intelligence. The organizational structure is critical because it describes exactly how you would compartmentalize the most explosive secret in human history. You'd put it under presidential authority. You'd staff it with the heads of the most powerful agencies. You'd keep it away from Congress, away from the normal military channels, away from anyone who might leak it or challenge the program. When the FBI and Air Force investigated the documents in the late 1980s, they declared them completely bogus. They pointed to what they called forensic flaws. The signature on the Truman executive order wasn't original. It was mechanically copied from a different Truman memo. There were scratch marks that proved it was photocopied. The Cutler twinning memo, which referenced an MJ-12 meeting in 1954, was supposedly written on a date when Robert Cutler was traveling outside the country. The National Archives, of course, said they had no files relating to Majestic 12. The government used these findings to dismiss the entire thing as an obvious fraud. But let's think about this differently. If you're running the most classified program in human history, how do you protect it? You make sure there's plausible deniability built into every document. You use copied signatures instead of originals, so forensic analysis will flag them as fake. You introduce small errors to allow the government to officially dismiss the documents while the core information still gets out to the right people. This is exactly how intelligence agencies operate. They leak information through channels that can be officially disavowed. They create situations where they can say these specific documents are fake, while never addressing whether the information within them is actually accurate. And think about the Albuquerque postmark. Why Albuquerque? Because that's where Kirtland Air Force Base is located. That's where the Atomic Energy Commission's Special Weapons Project was headquartered. That's where General Robert Montague, one of the alleged MJ-12 members, was stationed. That's the geographic center of the classified military and nuclear infrastructure in New Mexico. Someone chose that postmark deliberately. Someone who understood the historical and geographical context. Someone with access to information that civilian researchers didn't have in 1984. In 1985, Moore and Shendera received an anonymous postcard that led them to the National Archives. Buried in recently declassified files, they found the Cutler twinning memo, an actual document in the official archives that referenced MJ-12. Stanton Friedman spent over a decade investigating all 12 alleged members. They knew each other. They worked together. They had the clearances. They were in New Mexico at the right times. General Twinning canceled a trip to Seattle in July 1947 and suddenly flew to New Mexico. Every time someone has tried to debunk these documents, they found evidence that supports the core claims. So what's happening right now? In recent congressional hearings, UAP whistleblowers have testified under oath about recovered non-human technology being managed through unacknowledged special access programs. They describe a small group of military, intelligence, and scientific officials who control this information and have done so for decades. This is the exact structure described in the 1952 Eisenhower briefing. Current whistleblowers are using different terminology: UAPs instead of flying saucers, non-human intelligence instead of extraterrestrial biological entities. The core reality is identical. Something happened in Roswell in 1947. The Army Air Force said they recovered a flying disc, then retracted it hours later. Witnesses described debris with properties unlike any known material. Bodies were allegedly recovered and transported to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. The MJ-12 documents named 12 people who had the authority and the clearances to manage this. They contained verified classified information that wasn't publicly available in 1984. They described the same structure that whistleblowers are testifying about today. We're 40 years past the first appearance of these documents. The evidence keeps getting stronger. The current UAP disclosure movement is describing the exact same secret committee that MJ-12 revealed in 1984. Something very real has been hidden for over 75 years, and we're finally starting to understand what it is.